I found an apartment that shouldn't exist. Something was waiting for me. Part 2. Chapter 10. Dead Channels? There are rules about haunted spaces. Most of them aren't written down. You just learn them. Some the hard way. One of those rules is this: the deeper in you go, the more the place knows you. By now, the apartment wasn't just observing me, it was interacting. Adjusting. Reaching. Memory and architecture tangled up like vines, drawing me deeper into its guts. I needed an anchor. Something real. Something uncorrupted. I pulled out my phone again. Battery, 38%. I opened the camera. Black screen. Not dark, black. Like the lens had been gouged out. But it hadn't. The phone was intact. Yet it refused to show the room. As if it couldn't. I switched to the recorder. Static. I tried to play the mysterious voice memo, the one titled. Again. It opened. Then closed itself. Then opened again. Only this time, there was no audio. Just a single frame, a thumbnail. Me. Eyes closed. Lying in this room. Pale. Still. I powered the phone off. But the screen stayed on. No icons. Just a flickering, silent gray light that pulsed like a heartbeat. That's when I heard the TV click on. I hadn't noticed the television before. But now, in the far corner of the living room, resting atop an old metal cart, sat a CRT unit, boxy, dusty, the kind you had to slap to get a picture in the 90s. No remote. No visible power cord. The screen was pure static, but not normal. Not white noise static. This was denser, the pixels slower. Almost deliberate. It wasn't broadcasting. It was remembering. And then the static shifted. Shapes moved inside the snow. The hum changed pitch, low, throaty, like breath through a vent. And the image sharpened. A backyard. Summer sunlight. A little boy on a tire swing. Brown hair. Crooked grin. No front teeth. I knew that swing. I knew that grin. It was me. Home video footage from when I was 7. I remembered the day barely. My older brother had pushed me too high, I'd screamed like hell, and my mother had recorded it all on a clunky camcorder she barely knew how to use. But this version, it was different. The camera didn't shake. The lens didn't blur. The swing didn't creak. It was too perfect. Too precise. And something was wrong in the background. Something in the woods. A black shape. Humanoid. Barely visible between the trees. Watching. Still. I moved closer to the screen. My younger self turned to the camera and smiled. But then the smile faltered. His eyes widened. He looked past the cameraman. Directly at me. Not the lens. Me. And then, on the tape, he whispered, "Don't let it touch you." The TV exploded into static again. High-pitched. Violent. The bulb above me shattered. I staggered back, eyes watering. When the flickering settled, the TV was off again. The screen reflected the room in faint gray. And in the reflection, I saw something crouched in the corner. Not a person. Something shaped like a person, but bent wrong, like it had too many joints or not enough bones. Then I blinked. And it was gone. The apartment was quiet again. But the silence wasn't peaceful. It was that particular kind of quiet that settles over a playground just before a storm breaks. Like the house was holding its breath, waiting to exhale something awful. Chapter 11. The Back Room. There was a hallway where there hadn't been one before. I turned to face it, slowly, warily, like a man peeking into the mouth of something that might decide to bite. The main room behind me was silent again, TV dead, air thick with the scent of burned dust and metal fatigue. The light bulb above had shattered clean, and tiny shards sparkled across the floor like dead stars. The hallway in front of me was narrow. Too narrow. It shouldn't have fit inside the floor plan of the apartment. The depth was wrong. The layout impossible. But that's the thing about places like this. They're not designed, they're born. And they grow. The walls here were different. Closer. Cracked. The wallpaper peeled in long, curling strips, revealing an underlayer of concrete that looked bruised. Not just stained, but beaten. Almost like the walls had been punched, over and over, from the inside. I stepped in. The hallway swallowed the light. Behind me, the living room shrank, its edges folding inward, like it was being pulled away into a smaller version of itself. I looked back once. The couch was gone. The teacup shattered. The photographs now just blank gray rectangles in their frames. Forward then. I walked the hall, each step echoing dully underfoot. The floor was wrong, soft in places, brittle in others. One board snapped beneath me with the hollow crunch of dried bone. I didn't flinch. Couldn't afford to. The hall ended in a door. Rusted metal. Heavier than it looked. I pressed my palm to it. Cold, but alive, pulsing, just faintly, like a heartbeat you feel in your teeth. I pushed. It groaned open slowly, revealing a second apartment. The same layout. Same kitchenette. Same furniture, arranged identically. But it was rotting. The walls were soaked through with black mold that veined like roots into the ceiling. The fridge had collapsed in on itself like it had starved to death. The air stank of mildew and meat left too long in the sun. And worse still, everything was wet. The walls. The floors. The cushions. Even the dust. It wasn't just damp, it was saturated. Like the entire room had been submerged in deep water, then drained, leaving only rot and silence behind. The TV was there too. Same cart. Same shape. Its screen flickered on the moment I stepped through the threshold, uninvited. This time, no static. This time, a mirror. Live feed. I was looking at myself. Right then. Right there. Standing in the room. Only, it wasn't quite right. The version of me in the reflection twitched once. His eyes rolled white for a second too long before snapping back into place. He smiled. I didn't. Then he lifted his hand, mimicking me, but kept going. Kept raising it, until his arm was bent backward at an impossible angle, shoulder socket straining, the tendons vibrating visibly through the skin like piano wires. I turned away from the TV. The couch creaked. No one was sitting on it. But the cushions had sunk. Deeply. As if someone had just stood up. The hallway behind me was gone. I was in now. Fully. And I had the distinct, bone-deep feeling that this room, this version, wasn't just part of the apartment. It was the memory of it. The things that had happened here. The things the walls still carried. Like scars or recordings. I moved carefully. No sudden motions. No shouting. You don't scream in a place like this unless you're sure you won't be the one who answers back. On the kitchen table, something new had appeared, an object half wrapped in plastic and soaked in mildew. A notebook. My name written across the front in faded ink. My handwriting. I stared at it for several seconds before reaching out. As my fingers brushed the damp, decaying cover, a breath passed by my ear. A voice. A whisper. Not hers. Mine. This time, try not to scream, Chapter 12, Other Selves. I didn't open the notebook. Not yet. It sat in my hands like a living thing, soft and swollen with damp, pages puffed and peeling at the edges, as though it had been submerged in rot. I ran my thumb along the cover, over the faded ink. The letters that spelled my name had begun to bleed into the paper. But the worst part: the penmanship was mine. Not similar. Exact. Same slight tilt to the letters, same long stroke on the Y. The way I wrote when I was tired. When I was scared. I set it down and took a breath. The air in this version of the apartment was different. Not just moldy, denser. Breathing took effort, like I was underwater. Or like the room was breathing with me and waiting for me to fall out of sync. I turned toward what should have been the hallway leading to the bedroom. It was still there, but twisted, angled like a funhouse corridor, a sharp bend halfway through that didn't follow physics. I followed it anyway. There's a particular kind of silence that comes before you see something you're not supposed to. A vibration behind your teeth. A cold that settles in the spine before the eyes ever catch up. That silence wrapped around me as I stepped into the next room. It had once been a bedroom. Maybe. Now it was something else. The walls were warped inward, bowing like they were trying to close in. The wallpaper had peeled away completely in long, curling strips that hung like shedding skin. One bare bulb hung from a wire above me, barely swinging, casting wide shadows that rippled instead of moved. The mirror was cracked. It took up most of the far wall. Large. Old. Antique, maybe, but smeared in dirt, spidering fractures radiating out from one central impact. The glass was jagged, catching the light in broken teeth. And behind that broken glass, I saw them. Versions of me. Each trapped in a shard. Each frozen in motion. Like they'd been caught mid-scream, mid-step, mid-fight. One was bleeding from the mouth, eyes rolled back. Another grinned, but it wasn't my grin. It was too wide, the mouth stretching farther than it should, teeth too long and wet. One sat against the wall, hugging his knees, whispering something over and over into his own shoulder. His skin looked raw, as if it had been scrubbed until it bled. Another stared directly at me. Calm. Still. But there was no light in his eyes. Just void. And then I saw the worst one. He hung upside down in the far left shard. Rope wound tight around his ankles. His body swayed slightly, face obscured by tangled hair, but even without seeing it clearly, I recognized him. His boots. Same as mine. His jacket. Same as mine. His posture. Same as mine. He wasn't dead. He was waiting. He lifted his head slightly, just enough to let me see his face. It was mine. But older. Haggard. Skin gray. Lips black. And his eyes, God. His eyes were sewn shut. Threaded. Thick black stitching crisscrossed his eyelids like someone had tried to blind the soul, not the body. His mouth moved. No sound. But the message was clear. He was warning me. I stepped back. The bulb above me flared, bright, almost white, then exploded. Glass rained down. In the flickering light left behind, I caught one last glimpse in the mirror. The images were all facing me now. Pressing against the glass. Mouths open. Hands against the inside of the mirror. Like they were trying to climb back in. Or break out. The room pulsed. The floor beneath my boots flexed like old cartilage. And for the first time since entering this place, I felt the edges of something dangerous crawling up my spine. This wasn't a haunting. This was a trap. One that didn't just consume the living. It kept the versions it liked best. Chapter 13: The Journal. I left the mirror behind. Not because the nightmare was over, nothing was over, but because I knew better than to stare too long at something that wanted to replace me. I walked out of the twisted hallway and back into the main room of this rotted version of the apartment. It felt different again. Deeper. Like the walls had inched outward when I wasn't looking, and now there were corners I didn't trust anymore. The journal still sat on the table, soaked in mildew and swollen from the wet air. But it was mine. It hadn't moved. And yet, somehow, I knew it had been waiting for me to come back. I sat down, slowly, on the couch. It sagged beneath my weight with a squelch that made me grit my teeth. It was like sitting on something that didn't want to stay dead. I opened the cover. The first page was blank. The second, too. On the third, faint ink bled through from the reverse side of the page, half-formed words, warped by moisture. My heart kicked as I flipped ahead. And then, there it was. My handwriting. No question. Slanted letters, slightly narrow loops on the E, long tails on the G. The way I write when I'm in a hurry. When adrenaline is drowning everything else. But I didn't remember writing these pages. Not one. I turned the page. Second entry. Or is it the third? I'm losing track. The apartment rearranged itself again last night. Door disappeared. Couch was missing when I woke up. She stood in the hallway for 3 hours. Just stood there. I stopped. I hadn't written that. I hadn't been here before. Right. But the ink was mine. The pressure of the pen, the familiar indentation. I touched the letters as if they might evaporate beneath my fingers. The next entry. I found a version of me in the mirror. He tried to speak, but his mouth was full of ash. I think we're all drifting through different rooms. Versions of this place. Of ourselves. Some of us get out. I think. Maybe not all the way. Another page. Day. Doesn't matter. I left a mark near the back room. It was gone the next time I passed it. Like the house erased it. Maybe it didn't like being remembered. I kept flipping. Dozens of entries. Notes. Observations. Maps sketched in shaking hands. Symbols drawn and then crossed out. Some pages were smeared with fingerprints in dark brown, too dark for water. Others had ragged tears, like I'd tried to rip something out and failed. Then I came to a page near the center. It was written in red ink. Short. Barely 5 lines. If you're reading this, you haven't died yet. But you're already part of the place. It knows your name. It knows your shape. And it will make you forget why you came. Underneath that, a symbol. Drawn clean. Purposeful. A perfect spiral curling into a jagged X. I recognized it. I'd seen it once before, etched into the floorboards of a house in Montana where 6 people had vanished over a decade. They'd found it beneath a child's bed, drawn in nail gouges. Another entry beneath the symbol, scrawled fast and messy. Don't trust her. She's not real. She's the threshold. My hands trembled slightly. I could feel something behind me. Not a presence, not exactly. More like a pressure. Like air thickening as something leans in. I turned the page. The last entry was a single line. Written in the cleanest, calmest script of the entire book. You're reading this again. I slammed the journal shut. The air in the apartment vibrated. Faintly. Like a held breath. A slow, low resonance in the walls. Then, from the hallway behind me, footsteps. Slow. Heavy. Deliberate. Coming closer. I stood. Grabbed the flask of salt water tincture from my coat pocket and stepped back toward the center of the room. The footsteps stopped. The silence returned. But something had changed. I could feel it. The apartment wasn't a room anymore. It was a memory. A memory trying to become flesh. And I was the thing it was building itself around. Chapter 14: The Rules. I opened the journal again, slower this time. Less like a man reading a book, more like someone defusing a bomb. The entries had changed. Not literally, not yet. But something in the air shifted the moment I cracked the spine again. Like the pages themselves were aware I'd returned to them. As if the journal had been written not just by me, but for me, each time I came back, each time I forgot. And now? Now it wanted me to remember something dangerous. I flipped past the entries I'd already read. The spiral. The red ink. The warning that I was reading it again. Then I found a section I'd somehow missed earlier. The top of the page was labeled The Rules. Finally. Something clear. Structured. A path out. I leaned forward. The first rule was printed cleanly in black ink, with bold strokes. 1. Do not speak your full name out loud. It remembers better than you do. Simple enough. I hadn't. I never do. Good start. 2. Don't stay in the same room for more than 15 minutes. That gave me pause. How long had I been sitting on the couch? No way to tell. My watch had stopped ticking somewhere in the mirror room. The phone was fried. And the concept of minutes, in a place like this, felt like a joke told at the wrong funeral. I kept reading. 3. Do not answer if it knocks first. Someone had scratched a thick black line through this one. Beneath it, in jagged handwriting I didn't recognize, even as my own, was an addendum. But if you don't answer, it comes through anyway. My mouth went dry. Next rule. 4. If you find yourself facing a hallway with more than 6 doors, close your eyes and walk backward. Don't look at what the 7th door does. It's not yours. The page trembled slightly in my hands. Not from my shaking, though I was shaking, but from something in the paper itself. Like it was breathing. Or like the ink hadn't dried, and the rules were still writing themselves. Next. 5. Never accept tea. That one punched me in the gut. The teacup on the table. The steam. The reflection of the woman standing behind me. I hadn't drunk from it. Had I? Suddenly I wasn't sure. Had I blacked out? I kept reading, desperate now. 6. If you see yourself, leave. If it sees you back, run. Unless it smiles. Then it's already too late. I flipped the page, the journal now vibrating faintly under my fingers. The next page was a mess. Words layered over words. Rules written then crossed out. Scribbles bleeding through from both sides. Half a page covered in frantic loops that spiraled outward like panic in handwriting form. Some fragments still stood out. Don't touch the photographs. If the bedroom door is open, close it and do not return. Salt lines will not hold overnight. The exit is not where you came in. Stop looking for the front door. And one, boxed in violently with red ink. You're not Dylan in all of them. I closed the book again. Sat back. Stared at the ceiling, now bowing just slightly lower than before. Something was off-kilter in my head. The rules weren't just instructions, they were a trap in their own right. Some were meant to help. Others were meant to mislead. It was impossible to know which. That's how it worked. This place wasn't just trying to keep me here. It was trying to teach me how to stay. I looked down at the journal again. One rule, barely legible, had appeared faintly across the back and side cover, as if written by pressure instead of ink. If you read the rules more than once, they change for you. Behind me, something groaned. The sound of wood stretching. No. Breathing. Slow and wet. Coming from the wall. I stood quickly. The air shifted again. The lights buzzed. I tucked the journal into my coat. And then I heard it. A knock. Not at the front. Not at any door. From inside the walls. 3 times. Deliberate. Heavy. And something whispered through the wallpaper. No more reading, Dylan. It's time to decide. Chapter 15. She's not human. The knock stopped. The silence that followed wasn't empty, it was pregnant. Thick with potential. The kind of stillness that tells you something just made a decision. Something old. Something vast. And it chose you. I turned toward the sound, hands clenched. One around the flask, the other brushing the journal tucked into my coat. I could hear my own blood in my ears. Or maybe it wasn't mine. The hallway behind me, bent and twisted like a finger broken in the wrong direction, was glowing faintly at the far end. Not light. Just illumination. A soft, sickly pulse that moved like breath, bleeding through the walls themselves. I didn't want to go toward it. But I didn't have a choice. That's how places like this work. They take away the obvious paths. They close the doors you think are safe. They lead you gently toward the thing that wants you most. So I walked. The hallway narrowed. The ceiling bowed low. Plaster peeled like scabs, and the floor seemed to flex beneath my steps, damp, warm in places, like walking barefoot across skin. And then I saw her. She stood at the far end of the hallway, near a black door that hadn't been there before. Same figure. Same dress. Same posture. But she was wrong now. Not just off. Wrong. She didn't blink. Didn't shift her weight. Her arms hung at her sides, limp and unbothered. Her face was tilted upward at a slight angle, eyes fixed on the ceiling, as if listening for a sound only she could hear. And then, her head rotated. Not turned, rotated. Like it wasn't attached by bones and muscle, but on a swivel, smooth and mechanical. It turned farther than it should have. Her chin past her shoulder kept going, until her face met mine, upside down, eyes wide and locked onto me. I froze. She smiled. No teeth. Just darkness. A straight line where a mouth should have been, splitting open like wet paper. Then her skin began to shift. Her face, once porcelain smooth, fractured. Cracks rippled from her cheeks outward like glass struck by a single, deliberate tap. The cracks deepened, widened. Her head split, not bloodily, but clean, peeling open. Like the mask it had always been. From inside stepped another her. Not from behind. From inside. Another version. Taller. Leaner. Eyes sunken. Skin gray and stretched too tight. Mouth split too wide and filled with too many teeth. But the shape, the dress, the voice, still hers. Still the same. She stepped out from herself like she was shedding old skin, and when she spoke, her voice echoed in multiple tones. Not layered. Competing. Some were her voice. Some were mine. Some sounded like screaming. Some sounded like laughter. You always forget this part, she said. My pulse went ice cold. You always come looking for the girl. For the reason. For the story. But you never remember what you really are, do you, Dylan? I'm not part of this, I said quietly, backing up. I'm just investigating. She tilted her head. No heads. The fractures in her skin hadn't closed. Inside each crack, I could see movement. Eyes, maybe? Jaws. Hands. You think you're the investigator, she said. But you're just another variant. My spine locked. Variant of what? She stepped forward. With each step, her form flickered. Different versions of her, different versions of me. One flicker showed her in fire, body charred, mouth screaming. Another flicker, she was me. Dressed like me. Standing like me. Holding a flashlight that flickered in time with mine. She took another step and changed again, this time a mirror image of the scarred, blind version of myself I'd seen hanging in the shard of glass. His mouth moved again, forming my own words before I could speak them. You've come here before. They said. You'll come again. Each time thinking you're the first. Each time forgetting you're the price. I don't belong to this place. I growled. I'm not part of your loop. She smiled with 20 mouths. You're not in the loop, Dylan. You are the loop. Then her arms split at the elbows, for limbs unfolding like insect legs. The hallway behind me closed. Not a door. The wall just sealed over it. Smooth. Seamless. Like the place was tired of pretending. I took one step back. That was all I had. And then, she lunged. Chapter 16, Loop Breaks. She lunged. But not like a person lunges. No tension. No weight. Just movement, like a puppet tossed forward by unseen hands. Her body folded and stretched in ways that rewrote anatomy. One leg twisted backward, the other skimming across the floor as if she had no bones at all. Her arms, those 4 splitting limbs, raked across the walls and ceiling, leaving long gouges in the plaster like the room itself was flinching away from her. I turned and ran. No plan. No destination. Just away. The hallway shifted around me. The walls buckled. The floor rippled under my boots like liquid under thin ice. Every door I passed slammed shut just before I could reach it. I didn't try to open them. I already knew what was on the other side. More of her. More of me. The hallway folded. The angles became irrational, non-Euclidean geometry stacked like an M.C. Escher blueprint drafted by a psychopath. But the mirror, the broken one from before, was still there. Still cracked. Still flickering with them. The versions of me trapped inside. They didn't move this time. Just stared. All of them. Eyes wide. Waiting. Except one. The version of me hanging upside down, eyes sewn shut, he was gone. His shard of glass was empty. A chill crawled down my neck. I heard her behind me. The wet slap of limbs hitting the floor. The hiss of her breath. The chittering, clicking noise of teeth rearranging themselves in a mouth that didn't want to decide on a shape. I grabbed the heaviest shard of glass I could from the mirror, one the size of my forearm, and slammed it against the wall. It didn't shatter. It cracked further. The hallway howled. Not wind. Not sound. Memory. The sound of screams. My screams. Dozens of them. Overlaid. Layered. Staggered. I brought the glass down again. Crack. Again. Crack. This time the mirror fractured inward, the shards bending, not outward like broken glass, but like something behind it was pulling. Drawing. Tearing open a seam. Behind the broken glass was no wall. Just a black hole. A room. Another room. And I saw light. Not sunlight. But electric light. Stable. Real. The kind of light the living build with switches. I didn't hesitate. I dove through the broken mirror and landed hard on my shoulder, skidding across linoleum. It hurt. It hurt. And that was the first relief I'd felt in hours, because the pain meant I was back in a space with rules. I sat up fast, wiping blood from my cheek. The room was another apartment. Still apartment 6, I could tell by the layout, but different. This version was intact. Clean. No mold. No rot. No impossible hallways. And most importantly, empty. No photos on the wall. No teacup. Just silence. And then I heard it. The front door. Still sealed. But behind it, footsteps. Slow. Normal. I rose to my feet, heart hammering. This was my chance. This was my loop break. The door handle turned. I ran toward it. And the door opened. I stopped cold. Standing there, wide-eyed, clutching a rusted crowbar, was me. Not one of the feral, smiling versions. Not one sewn shut or decayed or crawling with insects. Me. Exhausted. Bloody. Dressed the same. He looked just as shocked to see me. And then he whispered, "God damn it, you broke through first this time." Before I could say a word, the hallway behind him folded in, and something dragged him back. Fast. Screaming. Gone. The door slammed shut. Locked itself. Deadbolts turning on their own. I was alone again. In another version of apartment 6. Maybe higher. Maybe deeper. But still inside. Still in it. But now I knew something the place hadn't wanted me to. The mirror wasn't an escape. It was an elevator. And I wasn't climbing out. I was going down. Chapter 17. They're all watching. The lock slid shut with the soft finality of a coffin lid. I stood in the stillness, chest heaving, trying to gauge what version of apartment 6 I'd landed in now. The silence was immediate and absolute. But it wasn't passive. It watched me. You can feel it, if you've been in this line of work long enough. That particular brand of silence, not absence of sound, but the presence of attention. The kind of quiet you get in the moment between a knife being raised and someone realizing it's meant for them. I scanned the room. Layout, the same. Lighting, off, except for one flickering ceiling bulb, buzzing like an insect caught in glass. I took a cautious step forward. And then I saw them. Eyes. Dozens of them. Hundreds. The walls were covered in them. Embedded in the wallpaper, in the floorboards, in the ceiling. Some wide open, some half-lidded, some blinking rapidly like they'd just been startled. All sizes. All colors. No irises matched. No symmetry. Like a god had plucked them from the dreams of madmen and glued them here as a gallery of madness. They weren't painted. They were alive. Wet. Glossy. Reacting. I froze. One blinked. Then two. Then all of them. In unison. A wave of synchronized blinking passed across the walls like a ripple in meat. My breath caught in my throat. I raised my hand. 100 pupils followed the movement at once. Another blink. 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 They were studying me. Not curious. Not hostile. Just observing. Like they were trying to figure out what version of me had arrived this time. What I remembered. What I'd forgotten. Crunch. I looked down. The floor beneath my boot was covered in shattered glass, small pieces, mirror fragments. Some still reflecting light. I crouched to pick one up. And in the shard I saw not my reflection but hers. The woman. Still wearing my face this time. Smiling. Standing right behind me. I spun around. Nothing. Only walls. Only eyes. And they were blinking faster now. Ticking. Like a countdown. No sound, but the motion had rhythm. Blink. Blink. Blink, blink, blink. I clutched the journal in my coat. No new entries. I checked my phone again, still stuck on the ghostly grayscale screen from earlier. No signal. Just a faint, pulsing dot in the corner where the battery icon should be. It pulsed in time with the blinking eyes. Then the pressure hit me. A surge behind my eyes. A push, like something was trying to burrow out from the inside of my skull. I clamped my jaw shut and steadied myself against the wall. Bad move. The wall pulsed under my palm, flesh-like, damp, and covered in tiny lashes. The texture of eyelids. I reeled back, heart racing. The blinking grew faster. And then, the first trickle of blood ran from my left ear. Warm. Thin. Followed by the second. I didn't panic. Not yet. Bleeding from the ears wasn't new in this line of work. Usually it meant something was pushing against the mind. Something strong. Something that couldn't take physical form but wanted in. I stumbled back toward the kitchenette. The lights above flared. And all the eyes closed. Every single one. The room went dark. And then they opened again. But now, they were looking past me. I turned. There, standing in the doorway to the bedroom, was a shape. Not a figure. Just a shape. Tall. Unmoving. Outlined in that impossible way, like it existed just slightly outside the frame of reality. Like the air bent wrong around it. I didn't blink. I couldn't. Because now, I understood. I wasn't the only one being watched. I was being measured. Compared. Lined up with something older. Something deeper. And all those eyes? They weren't here to scare me. They were here to study the reaction. Mine. Yours. Whoever I was this time. The shape in the doorway didn't move. But I knew, if I blinked next, it would.
The story may end here, but the darkness never sleeps. Like this video to keep the shadows stirring. Share your whispers in the comments. Your voice shapes the next nightmare. And subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Gothic Hour Stories and Mysteries, where every tale lingers and every soul leaves a mark. The Gothic Hour awaits.